name's Alexandra. I'm host of Independent Thinking Podcast, and today I'm being in conversation with Ben Watkinson, Creative Director of GF Smith. Hello.
Hi, nice to be here.
Good to meet you. And we're talking all things packaging, so why it matters, what it adds to the customer experience, making sustainable choices, innovation in the sector, and trends to look out for. And we'll also be kind of finishing with a few key tips that you can go away with and kind of action what we're talking about. You'll obviously notice a change to programming. So Tom from Cubitts can't be here. He's out of the country at the moment, but so no pressure. But yeah, it's the resident retail expert. So before we kind of get into it, if you could tell us a little bit about the GF Smith as a company, and I guess how you work with brands and your approach to packaging.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sorry you've only got me for a start. The choice was for Tom to either fly to New York or come to Olympia on trains that took about 5 hours and through the gale force winds. So I think he probably made the right decision. So GF Smith, we're a kind of thriving independent business. We've been going since 1885. I'm based up at our head office in Hull. Paper's our passion. For those that will know the brand, know that we're really passionate about it. And that's got a great link into packaging and packaging trends right now. In terms of how we work with brands such as Tom at Cubitts, we're really lucky in the sense that we get to work with everyone from starting greeting cards publishers, major brands, starting brands, students, and we're proud to do that. We feel like we're probably an extension of the creative process, and we're very much a point along that creative journey where a brand will reach out to us, talk about potential projects that they've got coming up, talk to us about material choices, both in terms of texture, weight and colour, and what might be the best fit for the project that they're working on. And sometimes that's a conversation that starts maybe 1 or 2 years before a product or a project for them even comes to market. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's coming in right at the last minute, but we're very much a consultancy-based business, and we love to work with people throughout an entire journey in a project life cycle.
Brilliant. And people can get a flavour and kind of they can touch some of the things over in this corner here, can't they?
Yeah, without doing the kind of big paper sell thing. There's lots of great examples in the corner over there of kind of greeting cards and some packaging examples of how people have used paper for packaging purposes. But actually for me, and this is the first time I've been at a trade show in 2 years, so this all feels still quite alien, doesn't it, post-COVID. But if you walk around the floor, actually you see great examples of how people are using more responsible choices for packaging. And I think it's really, really nice to see that. Probably 5 years ago, you'd have seen much more plastic than you're seeing now. There's definitely a swing to more sustainable and more responsible choices, and paper's definitely part of that conversation.
And you could advise as well on colour. Just thinking here, we've got Laura's book about kind of trends in colour and key things that we'll be looking for this year. That's something that you can help kind of guide retailers with a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are synonymous, as well as paper, of course, we're synonymous for colour as a business. And back in 2017, we launched something called the World's Favourite Colour Survey, which had 20 or 30,000 responses from all over the world. And that was really interesting, because actually that wasn't necessarily about trend, that was about emotion. And I think there's a big difference between the two, and the two probably should go hand in hand. We've worked with hotel chains and other companies on the back of that who want to understand what the future trends are going to be, so they appear relevant, but also want to understand what colour is and how that makes people feel. Because trend is one thing, that's about relevance, but actually colour brings with that emotion, and everyone has a different perception and view of colour. Laura's book's great, and that contains lots of really interesting information. There's some colour trends downstairs as well. But I think that when we talk about packaging, it's not just about material choice, it's also about colour, it's about every aspect of what that packaging experience feels like to an individual.
Yeah, so let's get into that then. So why does it matter so much? Why is it important that we get packaging right? And what does it mean for you when it's right, when it's good packaging?
Yeah, I mean, a good example really for me is a personal one. I ordered something over Christmas, and I think there's a number of trends going on in packaging right now. There's consumer trends, there's technology trends, and then there's trends for brands themselves. We're obviously seeing in consumer trends now, partly as a result of COVID, partly as a result of generational habits changing, more and more people ordering online. We've seen in the last 2 years as a business, as an example, that actually that our major growth during the last 2 years has been in packaging, and that's a significant shift in our business. And going back to my example, I ordered something online, premium brand, packaging arrived, terrible experience. The tear strip didn't work properly, the print wasn't right, it was slightly damaged when it arrived. Am I going to order from them again? I'm actually not sure. And that's not necessarily to do with the quality of what was inside the package, because that was actually really good. But the overall experience, my immediate perception was, actually, this isn't great because the packaging doesn't reflect the price point of what I've ordered.
Yeah.
So everything matters, because actually it's someone's first experience of your brand, and that brand could be anything from a candle company to a greeting card. And we often talk about this at GF Smith in terms of people who will spend a fortune on producing the most beautifully printed things you've ever seen, and they'll send it through the post in a plain manila envelope. But it's not, the two don't go hand in hand. So actually it is about an experience. Packaging is about an experience, and it's really about making sure that people, I think, understand how much of an impact that someone has immediately when they encounter packaging.
Yeah, because you're doing your product to be able to service then, that's how it's delivered, and I suppose it's bringing the same level of care that you show your product into the very first moment that consumer opens it, and it's that unboxing experience, isn't it? It's huge.
And that's one of the big changes, isn't it, that brands are working through right now. Because actually, my son's 9 years of age, he will watch unboxing on YouTube. I mean, what is that even about?
Yeah.
But he will do that. That's a thing. So people are really taking care now to understand what consumers want and what they're doing with packaging. You know, you order something off Mr. Porter, it comes in a really nice white box. You know, what are you going to do with that box? You're probably not going to throw it away. You're going to probably keep it. You might use it for something else. So that brand point is always there in some way, shape or form. We're obviously seeing now that sustainability is key. That's almost a standard. It almost feels a little bit strange to be talking about sustainability in packaging, because that has to be an absolute given. If you're not taking care about where your products come from, about the supply chain in a really genuine sense, and that's something fundamentally you've got to look at, because it's not about people I think have in the past have been looking at things like FSC and some of these other green credentials, and there's an argument to say some of that is actually greenwashing. You know, what are people genuinely doing? People want transparency across the supply chain now.
Yeah, and it feels remiss to talk about packaging without just talking about sustainability, because I think there's certainly been some poor quality choices, I think, to put it sort of diplomatically, about packaging in the past, and I think there's some really interesting innovative materials that you can use, and just think more creatively actually about your approach to packaging, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think what we've seen over the years is a natural kind of move away from plastic. Obviously there's been an anti-plastic conversation, hasn't there?
Yeah.
What we're looking at GF Smith is ways that we can use paper, but in a completely different way. So we've got a new product that will come to market soon called Colour Flu, which is about using corrugated material in a much more effective and dramatic way, where colour is really, really part of that. And then we're looking at ways that we use our own waste in our factory to make new products. So actually it's about that circular product development.
So what are the kind of key things I think people should be thinking about when they think about sustainability, or think about the kind of the packaging life cycle, I guess? Like you say, maybe think about something that people are going to want to keep, and they're going to want to, it's going to have a longer life.
Yeah, I think it's about exactly that. I think it's about designing a piece of packaging that can be used over and over again. Designing a piece of packaging that people want to keep because it's beautiful. You know, that in itself, you know, there's a big sway now, isn't there, for buying once and not buying twice. And I think packaging is a big part of that, making sure that what you provide for your customer in terms of packaging is just the best possible thing that you can do. Certainly that from a packaging perspective, in terms of do people want to keep that piece of packaging rather than throw it away? Obviously, in terms of material choice, it has to be sustainable. It has to be recyclable. I mean, in terms of paper, we've got a huge amount to do as an industry, and there's still a lot of misnomers out there about paper and how sustainable that is a material. And we've got a lot of work to do about that, like I say. But there was a report recently where it emerged that paper can actually be recycled and reused 20 times, for example. Paper biodegrades faster than a leaf would naturally, and paper's a natural crop that is grown for the use of paper.
Yeah.
But we've got a lot of work to do to help people understand that. So that material choice, and obviously we're at the front end of that conversation, is really, really paramount.
And you touched upon something about kind of consumers are so much savvier, and they're much more mindful and really invested in lots of ways in the product. And I think you talked about how this isn't about greenwashing, this is actually about change, and about, if we're going to think about sustainability, it's also about supply chains and being really transparent with your customer about how things are made and how things are processed and right, that goes right down to the packaging, like you were saying.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is about transparency. I mean, people want to know now where everything has come from. It's no longer good enough to say this is FSC certified, this is carbon neutral. That's not enough.
Yeah.
People want full transparency. They want brands like ourselves to be transparent about that. They want people to be honest, and they want to know that ultimately the first part of everything that you sell is coming from a sustainable and responsible place. But they want to be taken along that journey, and they want to know that you are being responsible as a business.
Yeah. And I think that kind of leads us really nicely into innovation in that sector then. So sustainability is kind of really pushing, I suppose, packaging and people like yourself to think differently. So I suppose what added value can packaging bring in an innovation thing? Because really we're thinking about a bespoke experience, kind of added value that packaging can add. So what can you tell us a little bit more about how it's being used quite cleverly? How we can kind of integrate some things to make really bespoke experiences for our customers?
And I think you've just touched on it there, and that's the key word for me, is bespoke experiences. The main thing that we're seeing at the moment, the big shift in terms of trends, is that people want a personalised experience. No one wants to feel like something's made en masse. They want to feel like what they're ordering is specifically for them. And we're seeing that in a number of ways, in terms of digitally printed packaging, which is personalised to the person it's going to, through to the use of technology and QR codes, and we'll see it in the future in terms of augmented reality as well. That's how we'll see technology really start to become more embedded in packaging. And from a brand perspective, that's also really important, because what that helps is brand integrity, but it helps with security as well. We're seeing a lot of the big major whiskey brands now looking at using technology in packaging because it helps with anti-counterfeit. So technology in packaging is something that is only going to get more prevalent and will deliver that personalised experience.
And you can be really clever, can't you? Because I'm just thinking about it, to stop disrupting kind of the elegance of the design of the packaging. You could do things through QR codes, or you could do things through, like you say, just so you can kind of keep the beauty of the packaging, because that's really as well at the heart of it. Let's be honest, it's about how beautiful something looks.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the place that we come from, and we've got those challenges as well, right? But years ago, I remember there was a Nike advert where you could hover your phone over a Nike ad, and a trainer would appear on your phone that you could rotate in 360. So these things have been around for a long time. It's just that for some reason, packaging seems to be a little bit behind that in many ways. But like I say, that's something that we're going to see become much more prevalent over the next few years, I think.
Yeah, and you can see some really interesting things about, maybe you don't show all languages, for example, on the back of a product. You have a link to a QR code, which, I mean, the QR code has had a real renaissance, I think, in the last 2 years. So yeah, and just have that, if you want more information that not everyone needs, then doing it that way as well. So I guess what trends are we looking for then? What other things are kind of coming up are going to be, again, in innovation? Anything else that we can look forward to, or things that are also going to be coming up that way?
I think what you'll see is in material choice as well as technology. You'll see a lot in material choice. What we're seeing in terms of paper right now is the introduction of other materials. We were looking last week, funnily enough, in the office at papers that contain seaweed and all kinds of different other materials. And a lot of this is to do with waste and natural waste and how we can use the planet's natural resources in a much more effective and a much more human way, actually. But certainly technology and certainly other types of waste materials as well.
Yeah, so presumably that's not seaweed, doesn't look like it's seaweed, is it sort of like, or is it kind of integrated to look like it is?
Yeah, I think it's integrated to look like it is. I think that's part of its appeal.
Part of its charm.
And some of those products aren't quite ready yet, but they're coming.
Nice, okay. So what kind of things do you think people should really be thinking of? If we had to kind of take away some key tips, I guess, from this session today, what are the kind of key areas that you think we should be looking at, that people should kind of take note of?
Yeah, I think for me the main part is absolutely always think about the experience that the person, and don't think about them as a customer, but the individual at the end of the journey is going to have when they interact with your brand, no matter how big or small that is. And I think that's really important because people are individuals. And sometimes we get obsessed with the thought of the customer, but actually if we take it back to a human level, what is it that you're trying to, what emotion is it that you're trying to get someone to feel? Colour choices, Laura touched on it in her talk earlier, is absolutely key, both in terms of trend and, like I say, colour is much more than that. Colour has impact, immediate impact. Material choices, sustainability, that message about being a responsible brand, transparency along that product journey, and technology and how you can potentially integrate that.
Yeah, so something much more bespoke. And it's so funny because I think that I love this idea of that we know we're buying a product that is made for other people, but we don't want to know about the other people. We want to know what we feel, how we connect with it, and I think that's really, really kind of special. Is there anything that you think people should avoid, or anything that you think, I don't know, without
Plastic, probably.
Yeah.
It's a bit obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, everyone's company is different, and I'm not here to say what's right, wrong, or indifferent for other people. But I think, ultimately, it's about understanding what people want, and like you say, as individuals, going back to the experience that we want them to have.
Yeah. And who do you think, is there anyone that's really exciting you? Have you anyone you've seen today, or anyone that could anything you think actually is really innovative, or something like you say, Mr. Porter, I think was something that you want to keep, but anyone that you think is really pushing boundaries there?
I mean, from a packaging perspective now, there's a great small watch brand called Instrument who do amazing things. If you haven't seen them, check them out. They're a small firm based up in Glasgow, but they do beautiful packaging really simply. They're doing absolutely great things. And then another, well, actually a friend of mine, so it's going to feel like I'm pushing her products, but I'm not. But the Marshmallowist, Una does a great job at making effectively marshmallows stand out in a really beautiful way with packaging. And please just walk around the floor and keep your eyes open and see what's there here, because actually there's lots of people doing lots of amazing things with paper.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about something like this is you can just speak to people about their inspiration and what their approach is to it, and be inspired by each other. I think share ideas about it.
And don't be afraid to challenge either. I mean, we get challenged all the time at GF Smith. One of the big things that we have as a business is trying to cut down our own footprint. I mean, the collection books over there, you see, we produce 40,000 of those every 3 years. It's a massive amount of paper. We have to package those, we have to send them out, and we try and do that in a way that uses less glue, less adhesive. We try and minimise our waste. So it's about also challenging brands and not being afraid to do that.
Yeah. And what about if anyone wants to kind of learn more about the sustainability angle? Where can we find information about it, or where would we kind of go? I suppose we could speak to you. Feel free to come up after. But is there anywhere you think that people can kind of get really up-to-date advice about what's happening and
Yeah, I mean, I think to get really honest, transparent advice, I mean, and this sounds quite lofty, doesn't it? But we're following a lot of the UN stuff now, in terms of what the UN pledges are.
Okay.
We're looking at working towards B Corp certification, and we're looking at making differences to our business that are not just about paper. It's about real, genuine change. So yes, it's about solar panels. Yes, it's about electric vehicles. Yes, it's about all those obvious things. But it's actually about looking way beyond that, and about the things that we control. So they're the main places we'll go in terms of really understanding where the world is headed.
It's a really interesting area. So we've got, just to recap, I think if I've got them right. So we've got thinking about your material choice, thinking about the lifespan of it, the quality of it, the colour of it, tapping into some of those trends that we talked about. But also you touched upon like how the kind of timelessness of colour and how people connect with that colour and how memorable it can be, and how that kind of interacts with people's brands. Sustainability, and just me reading my notes. Sustainability, really. That's it, really. It's crucial. Whether that's about transparency in your supply chain, about what your products, where you're finding them from, and the use of technology obviously is going to be really key and a really interesting. And I think it's going to be a really interesting area where people can experiment a bit more. And there's a lot of disruption going on there, which I think is really interesting. But it all boils down to that customer experience. So it has to be memorable and for all the right reasons. Anything else on that kind of customer experience that you want to end on?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think you've probably summarised that way better than I did. But no, I think all those points, and you know, to the colour point, we've got colours in our collection that have been around since the 1930s. You know, because colour is timeless. So I think all those things you touched on are just absolutely crucial.
Brilliant. Oh, I love that. And just always thinking back to how personal we can make it and making it bespoke. What added value can you add? Where can you link to? Can you use, like I say, technology? Who can you speak to? And certainly there's loads of people here today and for tomorrow as well, where you can get ideas, share contacts and speak to people about new materials and ways that we can kind of push the boundaries a bit more in packaging. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Tom? No, I'm only joking, Tom. Thank you so much for your time today. We'll be hanging about here if you've got any questions. If you've been inspired, then certainly we've got those examples over there. Oh, goodie bags. Oh, that's exciting. But yeah, we'll be here to answer any questions. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you.